Our chairman has allowed me the honor of introducing this next, which is going to be a panel. And I will invite our founding chairman, Bob Ingram, our chairman, Bill Weldon, our chairman-elect, Chris Viehbacher, and our governor for life, Jim Hunt, to begin to come with your notes and your libretti to the table which has now been illuminated. And as they are going forward, let me tell you with which the kind of affection and regard that we hold who is going to be our interlocutor, Governor Hunt, who most of you will know well in this room, but it befits the fact that this is our 10th anniversary in which we have an opportunity retrospectively to look upon not only with pardonable pride our successes, but most importantly the process that we have used to get here. But now, as Plato acknowledged, that I like to think of the future because that's where I'm going to spend the rest of my life, to look forward in anticipation and with further hope to the progress that is yet to be made. Jim Hunt, our governor for life, is a remarkable individual, serving an historic 4 terms as governor of the great state of North Carolina, nationally and internationally recognized as a leader in education, who led North Carolina through 20 years of educational reform and economic growth. Governor Hunt is focused on the new economy, those strategies that has established such things as the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics, the Microelectronics Center of North Carolina, and the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, all entities that did not exist before the germ was created in his mind, and then with a handshake that is legendary, was actually brought into pass. If you've not shaken the governor's hand, I encourage you not just to shake it, but to experience what it is to be brought into the center of his universe. For when he shakes your hand and grabs your arm and pulls you closer to him, and with hushed voice says, "What have you done for the state of North Carolina today?" you will know that this is a man with whom to be reckoned. Governor Hunt, wherever he is and wherever he goes, represents the highest, not only of public service, but of the dedication of an individual who is truly at heart a humanist. Why else would he give up a wonderful life to do what? For your children and mine, to bring education to this state, to bring the new South into not just a frontier, but into the new future. Who better to conduct a panel, to be the interlocutor of 3 great CEOs, our founding chairman, our current chairman, and our future chairman? Who better than our governor for life, Jim Hunt?
I said, Marty, the Lord will forgive you. Folks, sometimes when I'm over-introduced, and I've been over-introduced a lot of times, like that, I say that I just wish my wife and my mother could have been here to have heard it. Because my wife would have enjoyed it, and my mother would have believed it. Thank you, Marty. You're very kind, and we treasure you in North Carolina. Folks, I didn't get here last night. I wanted to very much. I had a board meeting in Dallas, and I went out to that airport. You all have all been through it a lot. And the first fix on the airplane didn't work. And the second fix didn't work. And finally, they got us another airplane, ran us all the way to the other side. Bill, you've been through there. And got here about 11:30 last night. So I didn't get to go with you to that marvelous new art museum. Aren't you impressed with that in North Carolina? If it weren't for Jim and Ann Goodnight, we wouldn't have it. Bob Ingram and a lot of other folks But I wanted to be there to be with you all and to get to know you personally. I've met a lot of you today, and we appreciate all of you. Honored to have you here. But I also wanted to be there as a graduate of North Carolina State University and the University of North Carolina, that's the Tar Heels, to show my admiration for Coach K and my humility as a graduate of these other universities that he's beaten the heck out of, although there's one more basketball game left. Let me tell you, I've been in a lot of meetings of important people, excuse me, doing important work in my life. But I want to tell you what I have heard here today. The work that Bob Ingram and you all started 10 years ago, that's being done in all of these fields. And I just paid so much attention. We're thrilled to have our guest from the White House today, and I like her, and I think she's doing good work. But the work of these two groups that you just had report, now they're your folks doing and leading this work, your work, really, really impresses me. And I wish all America could have heard it, Larry. This is really important. And as one who often speaks for at least the people of North Carolina, I'm impressed and I'm grateful and I'm proud of you. And I hope you'll feel the importance of it and how important you are in doing this work. Now, you're having your meeting here at a great place. I know you've enjoyed this marvelous hotel. You're here on the SAS campus. I don't know, did you or Jim go over all that was here? I won't go over it all, but well, it's the largest privately held software company in the world. Jim Goodnight just made that wonderful offer to you. He can do it. They've got buildings here named from A to T or Z. Got 4 more before you get to the end of the alphabet, Jim. You go down this road out here. Just voted the best place to work in America. Did you see that? 3 years in a row. In any event, we're proud to have you here, and anytime you can be hosted by Jim Goodnight, you want to be. Excuse me. Now, I want us here to do 2 things. First of all, I want us, and we're mindful of the time. We're not going to keep you over. I want us to have a little discussion about how we came to be here. This session is entitled "The Past and the Promise." It's the 10th anniversary, started by that great president, George H.W. Bush. And every year we recognize more the work he's done and the kind of man he is. So I want to talk with these 3 wonderful chairs, CEOs, leaders of this organization. Bob Ingram, who we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Bob Ingram. I want to tell you, in all of my 16 years as governor, 4 years as lieutenant governor, I never had a partner like Bob Ingram. He knew what the state needed to do in education and in healthcare and in science and all these fields. And yeah, he had his work to lead the company, but he knew he had a responsibility and an opportunity to help build a state and make a people. Now the 10th largest state will be 7th largest in another 10, 12 years. And he did it with all that he had, and we're so fortunate for that. Bill Weldon is, everybody knows him. And Bill, I watched you. I watch people when they moderate and lead organizations. And you were right on top of everything going on, had your own ideas, moving that along. And I'm so proud of the 3 years that you served as chair of this organization. And my great friend, Chris Viehbacher. We love him in North Carolina. Now, Chris, the people here know that you now live in Paris, but that's temporary. I don't want your employees to go back and tell it. Your heart is still here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and everybody wants to know where Chris is. When's he coming back, you know? And we're so proud you're going to be taking over and going forward. Now, let's talk about this organization. Son, It's important, of course, about who's here, these three giants of business leadership and health leadership, but also the why. Bob Ingram, and we've heard a little bit about it today. We heard from the president. But talk to us about why. You were there, and we've heard a little bit, but give us a little more now, the 10th anniversary, about why this got started. You've done great things, but why did you start it all?
Well, first of all, Jim, I can't thank you enough for that very generous commentary, and first of all, for your continued leadership of our state and in many ways our country. But I'll be brief. And I look around at all of you. One, when a current former president asks you to do something, you obviously say yes. But then as soon as you say yes, and he does tell you that he recognizes that leaders have a privilege to set an agenda and then to be bold, we did convene, as you've heard, most of you, 12, 13 of us, right here in RTP. And frankly, most of us were in the pharmaceutical industry. And we started looking at what were we doing in our own companies as it related to our benefit programs that would either encourage prevention or early detection. And Governor, I'm embarrassed to tell you that we were embarrassed because we weren't doing nearly what we should. And it was that recognition of our privilege and obligation, as well as the opportunity, that started this. But rather than talk about that start, I'll just say to all of you, I hope you recognize what Marty said earlier. When you leave here today, all of us have busy lives. All of us have responsibilities in our own organizations, public, private, for-profit, nonprofit. But we all know other people who have leadership privileges. And of all the things you'll ever ask them to do, this might be the best thing you'll ever ask them to do for them and the organizations they lead. Because as we now have heard from Judy, and certainly from Kurt, we do good work. And at the end of the day, the added benefit is you can actually do well by doing good, because the bottom line will get better in the organization because you're going to spend less money treating this dreadful disease, and you're going to get better outcomes. And as a result of that, you will be a better place to work. So I just want to say, Governor, I had the privilege to help start it, but it's been a team effort, and I'll just say that the real growth has occurred, and not surprisingly, under Bill Weldon's chairmanship.
Well, I want to talk to Bill about this now. And by the way, Bob and Bill, when I was first told about this organization, and you're going to be here, and I might be asked to come help out, I thought, well, these are the healthcare companies. But you're much more than that now. You've gone beyond that. You've got great companies of America. You're going to be talking to more of them. I'd just like to have your thoughts, Bill. Winding up 3 years of this, and I watched you with Mary Ann, and I can tell how much you're involved in healthcare and, of course, your own company, but the country too. Give us your thoughts now, concluding 3 years as the head of this organization, CEO of the great Johnson & Johnson Company. What are your thoughts about this that you'd share with your colleagues?
I guess I keep going back to one thing that impacts me, and that's the patient. I mean, that's ultimately what we're all here for, is for the people we can help, the people we're given the honor of serving, and I think it's about patience. I mean, we can all sit here and talk about all the things that the companies do, and I said it the other night with Coach K. It was about the two young men that came into the room, not about the leadership, not about all the other great things he's accomplished. But to me, it's about patience. It's about the impact we can have on people's lives. We all know people who have been touched, and all of us have probably been touched personally by, and I could break it into three groups that I know, or three people I know that this year have impacted me. One who had a serious bout with cancer, unfortunately is doing extremely well. A second one who had early detection and is doing very well. And a third one who died Christmas Eve. We all have been through this, and we all experience it. the question to me really is, how do we affect that one person that passed away so they wouldn't? And to me, it's all about that. And it's all about the people in this room who have committed themselves to helping people who have this unfortunate disease. It's not about finances. It's not about any of that. It's about people. And to me, that's what gets me excited.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so impressed with the way you all are working together. Now, I know you want to have a lot more organizations. I saw those bars, the red ones and the blue ones, and Chris has got his plan for that. But I see our folks from the academic institutes. All of you are here working for the people, not just the people of America, mankind. You're talking about going global, and you will. You are. Look, you've got Chris Viehbacher, your boss is ahead. And by the way, that's what Americans ought to be about too. It's not just about us beating somebody. It's about mankind, our fellow human beings. And you have international markets. That's one of the great things about business leadership in this day and age. I would just say to Bob and Bill, what are you most proud of? The two of you now, and then I want to go to Chris. What are you most proud of in terms of what you've done in these 10 years?
Well, I'll start and then turn it over to Bill. I thought Bill said it very well. At the end of the day, this is about people's lives. And isn't it interesting? We sit here focused on cancer in terms of how we prevent it, particularly by encouraging people to be tobacco-free, by encouraging people to eat more sensibly, to exercise. But as you all know, that cuts across a lot of other diseases. We have an obesity epidemic in our country that causes a type 2 diabetes epidemic, to just name one disease. And if we do these things well, we not only reduce the incidence of cancer, we reduce the incidences of a number of other diseases. And it all comes back, as Bill said, Governor, to the patient who could be our employee or our employee's child, that we have the obligation to serve. Mm-hmm. And so for me, to have had a small role in helping see this effort get to this point and to see the future promise and opportunity is probably the most rewarding.
And I've noticed you find, encourage leaders, Bob. That's one of the great things you do. That's one of the great things I know that Bill does and all of you. Bill, 3 years, what are you most proud of?
You know, I'd say I'm most proud of the people in the room. And I have to say that because to me, when you look at the impact, you know, I don't have, Bob doesn't have, Chris doesn't have, we all have. And it's the impact, and it's what I experienced with.
That's good.
Goodness gracious. But I experienced with Lee and Bill and Marty when we went out on the aircraft carrier and to see what Lee's doing and how we can move so many things. I think when you look at the impact we can have, and the impact we've had through the Gold Standard and through the Life Science Consortium, and the impact on people's lives, accelerating, you know, with what Greg and his group has done, accelerating the ability to move clinical trials up faster, which allows innovations to get into the patients faster and hopefully get into the market and save lives. You know, I think we've had a huge impact, but I think we've only just begun to scratch the surface. I think the future is so much greater. We've doubled every year, and we're affecting 2 million lives. And I think Nancy Ann said it well, but the 2 million lives we affect probably affect, you know, a lot more than the 2 million. But how do we continue into the future to have this extraordinary impact that we have in the room and in the companies that we work in? How do we take that to another level? Mm-hmm. How do we affect the people around the world, as you mentioned earlier? And, you know, it is our responsibility to do that. So what are you most proud of? I'm proud of the people that have committed themselves to the patient. And I think through the Gold Standard and through the Life Science Consortium and the work that's gone on, I don't think there's any other group that could have done this. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'd say I'm most proud of.
And today, hearing the things that were talked about here, I was so impressed about how you've worked together to speed up clinical trials and the work and the credibility you have with the FDA. I think there's so much more we need to do with the FDA. And I sure hope you all will keep working on that. It's got to be done with integrity and honesty and all of that. We've got to protect our people, but boy, we need to bring those medicines on. as quickly as we can. Now, Chris Viehbacher is one of my favorite people, and he's coming in now to be your next chairman with a terrific team behind him. Chris, I've always noticed in the work we've done together on education and science and everything else at economic growth, you're always thinking ahead. You've got ideas. What's your plan now? You're taking over. What are your thoughts about the future? What can we expect now under your leadership?
Well, Governor, first I think my objective is not to mess up. Bob really did the heavy lifting. I think getting something off the ground, as we all know, was actually the hardest part. Getting people mobilized, getting some level of organization, setting a vision, getting the resources behind it. And then Bill has come in and really turbocharged everything and allowed us to really have impact, the 2 million lives that we can now help to protect against cancer. And so, the first thing is I think we need to continue the momentum. One of the things I've learned from both Bob and Bill is that we are here as somebody giving us a sign here? We are here as...
We're still here.
Chris, we actually had this room for 8 more minutes, so.
I better finish up before the ceiling comes in. Anyway, we're here as CEOs first. It happens that we're running healthcare companies, and that gave us some inside knowledge to the disease. But, one of the insights was, 1 in 2 men are going to probably face cancer in their lifetime. 2 out of 3 women, or 1 out of 3 women, but it's 1 out of 3 women is going to face cancer. So this isn't something that's marginal. This is something that could affect a broad population, in particular, not just of our employees, but our families, our friends. Now, we can't change the world, but as CEOs, we can change our companies. And I think that's really at the core of this. It is people who recognize that there's a threat. We understand that there are certain things that we can do to help protect people. This isn't about treating people. I mean, what we really want to do is make sure people don't get that dreadful diagnosis one day. And to the extent that we can do something, we have an obligation as CEOs to stand up for our employees and try to do as much as we can to protect them. That's what motivates me, and I think that's what motivates everybody around this table. Now, we have to say we have 2 million lives covered. I think there's an obligation on our part to continue to learn from that. What other things can we be doing? Can we help also in protecting on things like melanoma? So I think there are things that we need to do in terms of thinking about the gold standard. Should we take the gold standard globally? Is that going to dilute our efforts here in the U.S., or do we have the resource to take it? So I think we need to examine that. The Life Sciences Consortium, I think, is absolutely fabulous, because although the broader population all shares this goal of having to protect our employees, but those of us who do run healthcare companies, I think, do have even more obligation. And I'd like to think about my many years in working for a company that sold HIV medicines. 10 years ago, there was an unprecedented consortium. 5 companies who were developing HIV treatments decided to get together to share and pool information to try to accelerate scientific research. And today you can treat HIV/AIDS with 1 pill, 1 per day. And you've got people who are living for over 20 years. Imagine if we could do the same thing in cancer. And there are an awful lot of data, findings, understandings, and learnings, and we don't do enough to share, and we don't do enough to accelerate that research. And so I think the Life Sciences Consortium is an extremely powerful way that we can actually advance our understanding of cancer, biomarkers for this, but also assays and treatments. So, I would say to you, I bring a very strong personal commitment, but I would also say I don't think it's any more or any less than anybody else around this room. I think we do come with that common bond, and you have certainly my absolute personal commitment to continue to carry on the torch that Bob and Bill have done, and who are going to fortunately stay involved. I would also say, I'm pretty sure that Bob and Bill would also say that one of the things that made this absolutely work is clearly Marty. who is really the real brains behind the operation, but also John and Peggy, who work every day on this, even when we can't always be on a day-to-day basis on that. So I'd really just like to say that it's not my commitment, but I'm also going to make sure we support Marty, John, and Peggy, and I think it'll be a good time to also thank them on our behalf.
Well, let's thank them right now. Now, I want to ask about one more thing before we wrap this up. When you talk to people, just regular people, and if you have been elected, you had to talk to them, be pretty effective. Learn from them, by the way. You know that in terms of health care, fighting cancer is the thing that touches them the most. I can't tell you the number of candidates that run that we're going to fight cancer. I'm going to put a program in, this, that, and the other. And we made a lot of progress, more than most people know. But it is something that when you talk about fighting cancer and saving lives, you can really get people to do things if you do it in the right way. And I think you all are doing that. Now, this ending panel was entitled Progress and Promise, and we've just heard from Chris about promise. We've heard from the President, President Bush, and you all keep repeating appropriately about being bold and venturesome. Good word. Somebody mentioned companies making this a visible part of their website. Good. Taking it global. Folks, this is wonderful, what you all are doing, individually and as an organization, and the way you're organized here and the goals you have and the work you're doing. There's one thing that, as a sort of an outsider, I would hope you would do more of, and it's consistent with all the things you've done and the progress you've been making, what I'm hearing from Chris. I want more companies. I want more organizations. I want more people to know about the work you're doing. I would like, and I think I'm hearing Chris say this, you've got 80 companies that are gold standard or so. How about if next year you have 800 that have learned about it? They haven't reached it, maybe aren't trying to reach it, but they've learned about it. Suppose in a big chamber of commerce, here in the Research Triangle, Chris, or one of the other organizations, we got several gold standard companies. I'm proud of it. Blue Cross has come in, all the others here. Suppose that was presented. And y'all don't want to dilute your work. I know that, and you can't do everything. I understand that. But if you could put an arm of reaching out and telling the story more and encouraging other companies, they can do some of this stuff. They can work harder on cutting down smoking. And there are other things they can begin to do. Again, I would urge you to think about more outreach, more making your own example known to people so that they'll figure out some things. People are smart and they care about this. And so I would urge you all to think about more telling the story. This is not known by a lot of people.
That's right.
What you've done. Let's make it known to every business in America, France, around the world. Take a while. I'm not saying, you got to be very careful because you got something so precious and so good here that you got to keep the quality of it, the integrity of it. But I would really like for more people to know about it, more people to say, well, we want to be a company like that. We care about our employees. And then others will learn from them, and then other groups will begin to do it, and church people will encourage, all kinds of organizations that can help do some of this stuff. They don't have the resources to, pay for some of the things that your companies may be paying for. Anyhow, that's a thought as a sort of an outsider that I've had. And I would encourage you all to think about ways maybe that you can reach out more, people be aware of what you're doing, looked up to, and they want to find some ways they can emulate it. Folks, thank you all for the opportunity to come and be with you. Again, I am so impressed with the work you're doing. All the CEOs who are here and all of you here who are working with those CEOs. We all know about teams and partnerships and how you have to do it and the folks that have to help you make it. This is one of the great things going on in our world today. I am so proud of Bob Ingram, who with President Bush got this started. Bill Weldon, who's led it such a great way and obviously so involved in health care in terms of national policy. Chris Viehbacher, his youth and dynamism and all the things that he's doing, coming in as a new chairman, you couldn't be better led. I just think they're all great, and I want us to give all of our leaders a great hand. Marty?
Thank you very much, Governor. It's now a very special time. It's now a very special time, and I think, Bill, it's going to be actually given to you for a succession and then to hear from Chris. Is there a gavel in front of you?
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty, and thanks, Governor. It's really an honor to be here with you. It really is. Thank you. You know, a couple parting comments I'd like to say is, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for the honor. It's really been a great experience over the last 3 years for me to have met people, to have grown in the way I've grown, to learn more about everything that's going on. And you know, Bob and Marty and I were talking about this morning. When you look back 3 years ago, for any of us, and you look at the journey we're on and where you end up today, it's really very different. And for me, with being part of this organization, it's been 10 years, but for the last 3 years has been a great experience. Met some wonderful people, and we couldn't have accomplished. And I'm going to say what little we've accomplished over this period of time if it wasn't for the people in this room. I do especially want to acknowledge Marty, John, and Peggy, because, you know, it's easy for us to sit up here and get all these accolades and all, but the real heavy lifting, the hard work, the extraordinary things in this organization wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for these three people. And they really do. I can tell you from my side of it that they're the ones that are the driving force behind this, that have done so much, and they really do deserve to be recognized for that. So thank you. And like I say, it's been a wonderful journey. You know, it's been a small step forward. I think Bob has, you know, made a big step. We've made another small step, and I think we're very fortunate to have Chris stepping in, who has been part of this organization from the beginning, has been involved, and has the experience of looking at it from both, if you want to say, the U.S. side, and now as the international side, and the opportunity to move it forward. I said that, you know, we've tried to double every year, and so, you know, 5 million should be a shoe-in, to put it bluntly. But I think that Chris has an opportunity, and we're fortunate to have him, because I think he can take it to another level. I think we've tried to do certain things, tried to move it forward, but I think we're going to be in extraordinary hands with Chris as the new leader, and all I can do is give him this gavel and say thank you very much and good luck.
Chris, before you, there is one additional spontaneous presentation from the world's largest and newest United States nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Captain Mandel?
Can't figure. Oh, it's on. Okay. Yeah, Chris, congratulations. And on behalf of the USS George H.W. Bush, we're going to present you with the one item that every man and woman in the United States wishes to have, and that is an official George H.W. Bush ball cap. But wait, there's more. With your name embroidered on the back. Apparently, last year at the meeting in which I was not able to attend, my staff presented Bill a similar thing. And we welcome you to our team, and it is our earnest hope that we will be able to officially join your team this year.
My son is going to be so jealous when I see him this afternoon. Well, thank you all, particularly for this. I'll certainly wear this with the same spirit of service that every man and woman in the service tries to bring to the United States. I think I've said a lot already. This is a very powerful group. The fact that Bill has spent so much of his time tells you all of us as CEOs around this table have huge numbers of demands on our time. And we could probably have spent these last 2 days doing at least 20 to 50 other things. But we chose to be here. And we chose to be here because I think we have an extremely important mission as well. And that is what has already been said. That is to protect patients against cancer, help them where we can. Marty has talked about our convening power. That's really because of Bill's leadership, that he's really brought this to 2 million, that we've had so many people sitting around the table today. And now the real trick is, how do we use that convening power to do good? So Bill, thank you on behalf of everybody here. You've had enormously inspirational leadership, and we're going to try to take this to the next level. And I am so glad I don't have to do budget reviews with you. Double every year, 5 million. Now you know why J&J is such a big, powerful company. So I appreciate the confidence and trust of everybody. Thank you very much.
On behalf of our leadership, I would like us all also to acknowledge that Bill has brought tremendous leadership, but also a great support. Linda Gallo, Jeannie Weintraub, Michelle Woolley, Alec Gorski, Bill Haidt, Ephraim DeLugash, Gary Reedy, Fick Isaac, all of whom are here. It's not only Bill that's come. He's brought all of his senior staff. And that also is a reflection of leadership. To them, all of whom now are working, most of them are outside, please let us share a round of acknowledgement and applause. And before I turn it back to Chris to adjourn us, now that you have the gavel, let me also personally say that which you've already heard on 2 previous occasions, that we are blessed with a tremendous man in John Dornan, truly dedicated with tremendous capabilities, who is a force for good. Those bars that we've seen elevated could not have been, were not it for he and his seamless compatriot and our czarina of the gold standard, that's Peggy Harrington. They can complete each other's thoughts. Whatever credit I have been given, and I'm grateful for it, truly I reflect to the 2 of them. Back to you, Chris.
Well, thank you, Marty. Unless there's any further business, we'll now declare the 10th CEO Roundtable adjourned.